Hi guys, it's Avalon here and welcome back to Simply Avalon. As you can tell from the title of this video, this is going to be a how to journal and how I journal type video. I'm really excited to have this one out specifically at this point in time, just because I feel like we're going through some really trying times and also just venturing into the unknown. And when you have times that are very uncertain, it becomes even more important for us to find venues and ways to relieve stress. And this is one way that I have found that really works to relieve stress, at least in my life. Yeah, but I'm gonna split this up into two parts, why I journal and then how I journal. And that how I journal part, I will also talk about supplies. And I will also leave time codes down below if this gets a little too long. So that's really all I need to say now. Let's go ahead and get started. I've actually been journaling since I was a kid. I always kind of considered myself to be a writing child, whether it be writing short stories in the back of my mom's minivan or, you know, having a diary when I was in second grade. I just have found it as like the best outlet to, you know, be in touch with my emotions and also to release the stressors. And I feel like journaling specifically for me has become the best way to declutter my mind. There's nothing like putting words to paper and then being able to go to sleep afterwards and just be like, okay, we can now be at peace. Like, we have let that go, at least for the time being, the words onto paper, and now I can go to sleep. That's just something that I really enjoy. But also kind of building off that, it's just such a great creative outlet. It doesn't just have to be your daily journal. I mean, that's what I do, but you can also have an artist journal. You can have a brain dump journal. You can have them all mixed into one like I do. You can have an ideas journal. There's just so many different ways to journal and so many venues that you can take it that it's just such a great way to be in touch with your creative side. Lastly, and probably the biggest reason why I enjoy journaling is because it's the best way to document what's happening in your life. As a journalist also, I love dealing with history and also just kind of finding the ways to connect the dots with the things that we are seeing that are happening. And I feel like you should also be able to do that in your own life. You should be able to reflect and see what has happened. I have kept journals since high school and middle school and even elementary school, so to be able to go back and read some of the things that Avalon was thinking when she was in high school or when she was in middle school is just such a crazy thing, but also important thing to be able to do. You're able to see and capture a moment in time and kind of freeze it by writing about it on paper. And also it just allows you to kind of like put everything in perspective, that those things that you thought were super big in high school, going back and reading through them and just being like, it all works out in the end. And also when you're writing them now, it's like, well, I know that I did that in high school and in middle school. I know that one day I'm gonna look back and read these moments and be like, man, if I could see myself now, dang, like if that girl back then knew where this girl would be now, I would totally be in a different frame of mind. And I feel like there's just something about journaling that allows you to do that because you really are documenting what's going on in your life at these points of time. Recently, I kind of changed my system a tiny bit just because in college I decided that I wanted to add more of a gratitude addition to my journal. So I start off after I have dated it and everything. I like to do like the title pages with the month so that I can see what's going on, and if I'm flipping through I can easily find the month. And then I also date it with each day entry that I make. I try to do daily entries, but I'm gonna be totally honest, I'm not that great at doing daily entries just because I personally prefer writing at the end of the day just so I can be able to get out everything out on paper. But if you're also choosing to write only at nighttime, then you are also taking that risk of sometimes not feeling well enough to write, being a little too tired just because you've had a busy day, and that can definitely get in the way of it. So I would definitely suggest, if you have the time, to be able to kind of do it as the day goes on instead of falling into my bad habit of writing at night. But I feel like both techniques are fine as long as you're getting down what's going on and in the end doing what you feels best. Just because there are no rules to journaling, which is such a freeing part of it. This is just something that you can do to relax. After I have dated it, I always start each entry now with my highs and lows. My highs are kind of like, what was a great thing that happened this week or today? What am I grateful for? Was there just a spunky quote that I read? Was there a great song? All of these things go into my highs. I don't set myself a limit of how many highs that I can write, but I always like to keep track of these just so I can look back and be like, wow, I have so much to be grateful for. I also like to write my lows just so that I am also keeping track of the things that may have been a hindrance in the past, and then to find out later on they became a high. Like, okay, yeah, had a bad econ test grade, maybe, you know, but now I can look back and be like, yeah, but I still came out of econ with a good grade. Like, crazy things like that that you won't think about when you're in the midst of it, but at the very end when you're looking back, you're like, wow. I will say I do kind of set myself a limit on how many lows I can write, just because I still do a daily log, so if more come, then I can obviously write that there, but I kind of like to keep myself to 3 or less, just because I don't want to make my journal excessively negative. On that, I like to go ahead and start my daily log, which is just kind of, okay, what happened today? What made me happy? What were the crazy things that happened? Who did I get to talk to that day? What is important about my daily logs is that I like to write, when I'm writing names, if I have a friend, let's just say Jack. I don't just write Jack, I write Jack Doe, because I feel like when you're looking back, it's really important to have the first and last names, because I may remember the last name right now, but when I'm looking at this 10 years down the road, I'm probably not gonna remember that Jack's last name was Doe. And if I wanna actually kind of contact this person later on just because, oh my gosh, I kind of forgot about this moment, let me go check in with this person, then I'm kind of put at a disadvantage to not have that last name. And that's something that I never really see people mention, but it's just something that I personally like to do just to make sure I can keep up with people. I also think that an important part of journaling is reflection. I already kind of touched on this a tiny bit, but I feel like when you are writing, you're able to piece together the past, the present, and partially the future. So when I am making daily logs, even though I am just like writing about, oh my gosh, this is what happened in my day, I do also like to make sure that I am mentioning, okay, so, you know, you remember back then when I applied for this? Well, guess what? This now happened. I now got to meet this person. Or just kind of like connecting the dots, because I already kind of said earlier about how I am a journalist who kind of likes to see how is the present and the future molded by what happened in the past. And I feel like journaling gives you that exact ability to do that within your own life also. And I feel like as a writer, that's something important that you can kind of get down and be able to see, oh my gosh, this thing didn't just happen. There were a lot of different smaller steps that got me to this point. So now that I've kind of talked about different ways that you can journal, I also want to talk about ways that I may personally not journal, but also are great ways that like my friends may also use. So there are different journals that you can have. You can have an art journal where I have friends who will sketch a day and that kind of like do like one sketch a day, kind of just like forcing them to actually draw and to build upon their skills. I personally also have a calligraphy notebook, and I like to write whatever spunky word. It doesn't even have to be spunky. Like I did butterfly yesterday and kind of write it in different ways and in different colors on the page, and I give myself like a page a day. There's just so many different ways that you can go about journaling. It doesn't just have to be, you know, a daily log. I just personally find a lot of use and a major relaxation out of doing a daily log, but that is not something that you should be limited by. Just start writing. Now let's talk about supplies. I personally will not be the YouTuber who tells you that you must buy a moleskin or another like drastically expensive notebook. To start out, I really don't think you need those. It is great to have, and they are very, very nice tools, but in the end, each vehicle will get you to basically the same place. But I will say that there are some aspects that you should look for before you buy your supplies. Personally, I prefer notebooks that are flat lay, just because it means that you will not have that binding that stands up when you are flipping the page, which is kind of important when you're getting towards the end of your notebook and also when you're starting a notebook. It gets kind of annoying, especially since I'm a person who likes to write in bed sometimes, to have like a notebook that's just like standing up and you're just like, oh, it's hard for me to like get my words all the way to the binding because it's like not sitting flat. Something that's slightly more important is to make sure that the pages are thick enough that you will not have pen bleed through. I personally do not like to write in pencil because it smears, but I do love to write in a good pen, specifically gel pens, but we're gonna get back to that in a second. I do not like when I have notebooks that bleed onto the next page because it kind of takes away from the entire experience, because you can't use the back of the page unless you want to have it be a mess to look back at. And I also have hands that when I'm writing a ton, they kind of get warm and start to sweat a tiny bit. So I really do not need the extra stress of having a notebook that also lets the ink bleed through. So kind of be mindful of that and make sure that you look for notebooks that aren't gonna allow your ink to bleed through, and also be mindful of the type of ink that you are using. I personally kind of lean towards gel inks that don't bleed through the page. Well, most of them don't bleed through the page. Pentel has some great pens. I love Bic pens. That's actually kind of tends to be the type of pen that I personally tend to go for, just because I'm not that picky. I will also list some more down below because I don't remember the brand names right now. After that, the only other thing that I can think about when it comes to supplies is that if you are deciding to do an art journal, you do not need to get the exact same journal that you would get for a daily journal. You should probably go for an artist brand notebook that again will allow you to use your tools, the different markers, your paints if you decide to do that, and not have bleed through onto the next page. Something that's super, super important, make sure you look at the paperweight. Make sure you look at the paperweight, because you will think you're getting a deal when you're trying out that like cheaper notebook, and then you find out that it's the paper that is made quite cheaply, and you will run into problems. But yeah, I hope these tips helped you guys with starting to journal. I actually will have a ton of prompts listed down below on my blog. You can check out the link down there. And yeah, we will get through this, guys. I hope you guys enjoy journaling, and more importantly, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and that is all I have for you guys. Bye. See y'all next week.